Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. Your boy Road Dogg here with the man, the myth, the legend who is probably polishing a trophy on a shrine to himself right at this moment. The man on top of the hill, King Karl. Big fella, how are you?
Yo, Road Dogg. How goes it, my man? What's happening?
The only other person is probably your friend Mike, who also has a mini shrine, but you probably have the biggest shrine to yourself. Not in the creepy way that everyone probably thinks as I'm saying it out loud. It's sort of creepy, but not creepy all at the same time. So there you go.
You better explain this, Road Dogg. People are going to be sitting there shaking their heads today. When you walked into, I think this all started, wasn't it, when a buddy of mine, Scotty Faggoter, I put a photo of my desk or something on Facebook, and he's like, "You've made a shrine to yourself." And then Road Dogg replied, and he's like, How have I not noticed that before? And how have I not made fun of you over this? So that's where it started. A bunch of hockey stuff, right, Road Dogg? It's not completely strange.
Well,
hockey helmet stuff.
It's almost like you're a goalie, right? Because they're a little bit different. But you're not.
I was a goalie when I was a kid, man. I loved it. So there you go.
How it all just starts making sense, just like that. Like there it is.
All right, Chief.
Are you ready to dive in? As much as everyone wants to worship the throne and the shrine of Karl Bryan,
nobody wants to do that, Road Dogg. We all know that, but that's all right. Let's rock and roll, dude.
All right, dude. So the first question that we got. So I'll just read it out here. The stats clearly show how most businesses fail. What is the primary reason, in your opinion? And what can the business coaching profession do about it? Obviously, dude, like this was a huge thing before this whole COVID situation. This is only going to this is on, as in Karl Bryan terms, on steroids. Right? So insane question. So true. What is it? Over 90% of businesses fail in the first 10 years. So what do you think is the primary reason? And I like that follow-up. What can the business coaching profession do about it? It's interesting, the wording there, but I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah. Okay. So just so I'm clear, somebody's just saying, look, businesses are failing left, right, and center. What can we do as a profession to stop it? Is that right?
Yeah. What is the primary reason, in your opinion, as to why they fail?
Yeah. Okay. So that brings me to, Warren Buffett. He says, reasonably famous quote, but I want to know where I'm going to die so that I'll never go there, right? So understanding why businesses are failing is a really good idea. And I just say that, look, business coaches, what we can do about it is we can just gain knowledge. Like if you've got somebody driving in a limo and they pass a homeless person, right? They're on the same street. What's the gap between the homeless guy who's clearly, broke and, the zillionaire that's ripping by in the limo? And we'll presume, again, the guy in the limo is, legit and, wealthy, et cetera. So the answer to that would be knowledge. That's the gap between the two of them. So really, that's what we got to do. I mean, those folks listening here, I really believe that you're, doing your part. Like you've got to become more knowledgeable so then you can provide guidance for business owners. Like a lot of business coaches get going because they like to help people. Like you speak to them and that's what they'll come up with. And it's like, I like to drive fast cars, but that doesn't make me a mechanic, right? So I find that a lot of coaches, I've said this a lot, like if you introduce me to a business coach that's lacking leads, I'll introduce you to a business coach that's lacking confidence. And then so how do we take somebody and provide them more confidence? And I believe that gap is knowledge. Like what I'm saying is What does Warren Buffett say? I want to know where I'm going to die, so I'm not going to go there. So lack of knowledge is where you're going to die. And then, the hill of knowledge is where you're going to succeed. Or like people confuse lead generation, for like the most important thing in business. And it's absolutely critical. Like maybe differently worded, you give me a room of 100 people and I say, what is the language of business? Okay. And 80 hands will go up, if not 95, and they will say marketing. And the real language of business, by the way, this isn't my opinion. This is Warren Buffett's opinion, by the way, to be clear. The language of business. In fact, I would ask you guys, answer that for yourself. What is the language of business and how would you answer that? Okay. And hopefully you just said accounting. Okay. It's numbers. That's the language of business. But people not only don't get that, but like they're scared of it. Like they avoid it. They avoid finance. They avoid numbers. They avoid the data. Most definitely avoid the accounting like the plague, right? Or then they set some arbitrary goal, that their goal is that they want to hit $1 million, right? Like the business owner, when you really understand business, that's about the stupidest thing you could possibly ever set to achieve, right? Like why? Because you could get to $1 million and lose $100,000, right? I know people that do $1 million in gross revenues and they make, 40,000 off of it. And then we know businesses that do $1 million and make $500,000 of profit. So you've got to make sure that the goal, like they got to understand business. So let me do this. Let me just go. So if you were to go to me and say, okay, Karl, what are the top reasons why businesses fail? Which ultimately this is knowledge and this is the hill that people will die on that they can avoid, right? So I would say this. Number one would be like a lack of a proper business model, right? Like remember, if you give me a room of 100 people and they all want to go into real estate, and then I will explain to them how cleaning, a cleaning business is on average, and of course there's always anomalies and whatnot, right? So take all this with a grain of salt, but I would start a cleaning company before I would start a real estate business, right? And why, or maybe actually real estate business, let me reword that, get started as a realtor, right? Because why? Repeat business equals profit. And as a realtor, no doubt you'd already know that, it's all on referrals and people don't buy, multiple houses. You're lucky to buy a house every 5 years, right? So there's no repeat business. And by the way, somebody buys a house, and then you interview that person in 24 months, they can't remember their realtor's name on average. So just blow your mind, but that'll give you the idea, the importance of follow up and that sort of stuff. But let's just keep going with this. Like lack of proper business model would be huge. What would I say number two is? Like not solving a market need. And then notice the two words there, market and need. So a market is like a defined set of people, pregnant women over the age of 30, parents with children under the age of 5. So you've got like a targeted audience, a market, and then you have a need. And remember, again, I've said this many a times on many of podcasts, and I'll say it in the future too, but you got to stop coming up with ideas and sending, spidey senses towards ideas. It has to be your spidey senses need to go to problems. And then the more people that have the problem and the more significant the problem, the easier it is to grow a business. So we look for problems, build a solution, and that's how you go into business. Whereas most people try to come up with an idea. I would also say that like the failure to assemble a team, how many businesses are out there and they're just, one man bands, and then they wonder why they never get anywhere, right? Like if you're a business coach, you need to hire somebody to help you generate leads. Like what would that look like? You find somebody to pick up the phone on a daily basis, and you provide them the names, the phone numbers of the people to call, and they pick up the phone and try organize, coffee meetings and 15-minute calls over the phone. Like hire that person. That would be an example of, the assemblement of a team. Or maybe you're like a super, that's you. Like you love the phone and you love to generate leads and you love to speak to people and, convince them that there's a better and more exciting opportunity out there for their company. Well, maybe what you do is you do that role. You pick up the phone, you phone people, and then you hire a coach to do the fulfillment, right? Like that'd be an example. But bottom line, the failure to assemble a team. Like if you are a plumber, okay, and you start a plumbing company and you don't have plumbers that work for you, you don't own a plumbing company, you just own a job, right? So that's why we have a program internally for our coaches where they can build a team of 10 coaches. And we encourage all of our high-end guys to get into that program because, again, you should be trying to avoid doing a whole ton of the coaching. You want to be doing the mentoring and the strategic direction. So bottom line, failure to assemble a team. But the big one, I think I'm at number 4 here. What have I done? So a proper business model, market need. 3 would be the failure to assemble a team. But number 4, this is like the big one. So I want you to think of this as number 1, but cash flow, not revenue, by the way, not gross revenues and hitting $1 million like that stupid goal that so many people have. It's cash flow. Like the reason a business doesn't go out of business because they run out of ideas. They don't go to business because they run out of opportunities. They go out of business because they run out of cash. And that is successful businesses go out of business because they run out of cash. So you've got to understand that. Like difference between so then somebody will be listening to this going, okay, revenue, cash, like I don't quite understand. Well, when I go do a job and then I send out the bill, it goes into my revenues. Like let's say it was a $10,000 job. It goes into my revenues, but I send out the invoice. What if they don't pay? And then, by the way, I've had to pay to generate the lead. I've had to pay to do the work. I've had to maybe pay commissions to my salespeople, and then I don't collect the money. Like that's the problem, right? So that's the difference between cash and revenue. Is like cash flow is money that hits your bank account, right? So, and remember, you guys, like you have coaching clients a lot and you hear this statement, like I'm profitable or my accountant says that I'm profitable. Where's all my cash? If you introduce me to a business that has a cash flow problem with 100% certainty, all of their cash is in 5 areas, right? It's revenues, expenses, accounts receivable, which I just mentioned, super important, often disregarded, which is just absolute insanity. Accounts payable. Again, they want to pay all their bills because they don't like debt. Right. So accounts payable, they want to pay everybody so fast, then they have a cash flow problem, right? Like there's a reason why people give you 30, 60, 90 days to pay, right? So you want to take advantage of that. And a reciprocal arrangement there, like, you don't want to be their bank, right? So this is why accounts receivable, you got to be able to go out there and get your dough. And then inventory. And just very quickly, I want to talk on accounts, like of those 5, accounts receivable, super important. Remember, accounts receivable is like a line item on a balance sheet. And the mistake there and the challenge there is that it should be itemized. And like, let's say I'm owed $100,000 and there's 10 businesses that all owe me 10 grand. Well, company 1 through 10 should be listed. The amount that they owe me should be listed, 10 grand each. And then the other thing that needs to be listed is the age of them. Like some are 2 weeks old, some are 30 days old, some are 60, some are 90, and some are above that, more than 90 days. Well, you need to know that because if somebody's gone 90 days without paying you, there's potentially maybe there's no issue and they just forgot to pay you and you just, you fell underneath the filing cabinet and they haven't seen it, but maybe they're going out of business and you're not going to get paid. Well, you need to know about that. And again, this is why you shouldn't wait 90 days to get paid. And by the way, these are your coaching clients, right? You got to be super duper cognizant of that. So anyway, so that's, accounts receivable and accounts payable are 2. I refer to that as sweetheart syndrome. Okay. So a company that has an accounts receivable problem, but then they want to pay everybody because they don't like the idea of owing money. Absolutely insanity. And then of course, inventory, hopefully that's a pretty straightforward one, but yeah, so that's what I would say. And maybe, okay, so what can business coaches do about it? Like, you've got to be knowledgeable. Like, if you watch, the Shark Tank or Dragon's Den or those types of shows, you'll so often see people stand up there and say, it's like $150 billion industry. If we can just capture 1% of the market, imagine, right? They're trying to become a minnow in an ocean. What you really want to do, and if you look at the biggest companies in the world, what they do is they create their market, right? Like most people are thinking, they're thinking big and then going small, the way that I just described this, when in actuality, when you see a lot, and of course there are anomalies and whatnot, right? This isn't a black and white thing, but really what happens is big companies start with a small market and then look to capture the entire thing and then grow, right? Like the world doesn't need another weight loss program. The world doesn't need another pizza restaurant, for goodness sakes, right? I don't care how good your toppings are and if you got a money back guarantee or whatever. And maybe that's just been your personal passion or your client's personal passion. That's where we're going to go, and that's great. But just understand that that's like going big and trying then to go small to capture, 1%, because you're going to be able to, franchise this specific pizza restaurant, which again is just not going to happen, right? Like Facebook started at Harvard, very small, but the X factor is that they got 60% penetration within 10 days. Most people don't know that. Like Facebook got started, it was only at Harvard, and 60% of the students at Harvard were signed up within 10 days, right? This is when Zuckerberg knew that he was onto something, and I think he sort of avoiding the Winklevoss's emails and whatnot. But like Tesla started with one sports car, and now it's grown, and it's worked, and it's growing and growing and growing, right? Again, they went small, went big, and the next big thing, like the next Bill Gates isn't going to have an operating system, right? The next Bezos isn't going to start an online store. It's going to be guys like that, but they're going to create something. And effectively what they're doing is looking, to create a monopoly. Like, again, they want to be small, like they want to own. Like traditionally what we think of losers as like people who can't compete, right? Like the fat kid in school or the non-athletic kid with the thick glasses or whatever. And apologies to anybody out there if that description, but like that's the kind of guy that you think of that can't compete, right? So we're grown like inherently on the subconscious level. We look, we want to be competitors, right? We want to go into that $1 trillion industry and get 1% of it. And we figure we're so competitive, we could do it. But in actuality, like this is what gets 20,000 people to move to Hollywood every year and try make it. And literally like 5 people make it a year. And there's a bunch, like Hollywood makes more career waiters than it makes, actors by like a million miles. My dad used to always say, like when I was growing up playing hockey, that hockey makes more truck drivers than it does hockey players, which is absolutely the case, right? So far better to change your thinking, and you want to go into create, and then you want to be thinking of monopolies. And by the way, if you like this topic, just Peter Thiel is a guy, like he is a billionaire. That's an understatement. He was the first investor in Facebook, but he's got a book, 0 to 1, that you might want to think about reading if you kind of like this topic. But that's what I'd say. Look, awesome question. I'd agree, Road Dog. That's a great question. Knowledge, the answer. What the business coaching industry can do is like take that and really understand. Like number one reason that I listed above here or earlier here is that like a proper business model is what we need. Well, most people are trying to build a business model they can compete with, when in actuality, you want to start a little small market and think creation. And this is where this is going to be a real game changer. But, getting knowledge, listening to stuff like this, listening, YouTube, reading books, taking those books and taking notes the entire way through. That's what I think we can do as a profession. That's the answer, buddy. I hope that's a good one, man, and helps.
Well, you got my mind racing all sorts of different directions, but I'm going to just channel that because I think you're going to answer a lot of it. This next question that came in. Speaking big. So I know that for some people, thinking of $1 million business is probably a dream and a half, right? But this person put in a question that said, what's the difference between $1 million business and $1 billion business? How's that for you?
Yeah, I like that. Okay. Okay, we're going to start with this, that you comparing $1 million business and $1 billion business. Let me help you do that. 1 million seconds is 11 days and 1 billion seconds is 32 years, right? So I don't know, 11 days and 32 years, you tell me if those have a heck of a lot in common. And in my opinion, not. And by the way, 1 trillion seconds, which our government, they spend trillions nowadays. 1 trillion seconds, actually think about that. How long do you think that is? 1 million seconds is 11 days. 1 billion seconds is 32 years. So quickly for me, think 1 trillion seconds, guys. What is 1 trillion seconds in terms of, days, months, years, etc.? And the answer would be 32,000 years, right? So when your government spends trillions, not $1 trillion, but trillions of dollars, you should really perk your eyes up. But bottom line is, I think put it in context. And by the way, I'm honored frankly, Road Dog, I love that question. I have never built $1 billion company, not even freaking close. You know what I mean? I got an 8-figure business, but that's as exciting as it gets for me. So whether I'm the right guy to be answering this, I don't think so. But that being said, the good news is, like, I've studied this actually, relevant to the question earlier. I have, armed myself with as much knowledge as I possibly can. And I kind of pride myself on the fact that I'm right here in the trenches, building my own company, building my own team, building software, trying to create things, not just, be like an also ran, and like, I'm not running to Hollywood to try to become an actor, if you know what I'm saying, right? So bottom line, a B company. So here's what, look, $1 billion company's got a few things working in its favor. Number one, it would have like proprietary technology, or proprietary IP, like something that basically something someone else can't, doesn't have, and they have some sort of protection around it. They have to have economies of scale. Okay. Like, in other words, as they get bigger, things need to become cheaper as opposed to the opposite. Like a craft brewery, versus Budweiser. Think about that. You don't need to go in and look at the numbers to know that the craft brewery is spending significantly more per glass of beer than Budweiser is, right? Pretty straightforward. But like, if you think of a restaurant, it's got the opposite. Like, the world doesn't need another restaurant. Will a restaurant scale? And the answer is absolutely not, because like, as the restaurant gets busier, first of all, there's capacity. And then even as it, if it moves towards capacity, you will see that the waiters are bumping into one another, the cooks are bumping into one another and whatnot. So as opposed to speeding up, it's like when it goes from like 50% towards 100%, the rate, you know what I mean? Like things slow down as opposed to speed up. Or your government would be a good example, right, of economies of scale. Like it's so big. It's like the Titanic, right? Like they want to turn left, they want to turn right. Very, very challenging. So they end up running into the iceberg, right? So much just the red tape and bureaucracy. It's just insane. So as companies tend to get bigger, that tends to happen. Again, this is why, large corporates fall over or can't move with the market. It's like Microsoft, like they just bought, what did they buy? I can't remember, but Microsoft just made a big purchase, and there's a pretty good example, and you would have seen memes all over the internet and whatnot. Like, are they actually going to do well with it? And the question is not too sure. The reason Amazon have managed to be so successful and grow so successfully is that Bezos is like absolutely insane about keeping small groups, right? Like I think they call it like we talked about this last week, I think, but like the 2 pizza rule. Like if a group takes more than 2 pizzas, it's getting too big. And I think he's got 10 people as the limit. So basically keeps everything tight. Bottom line is, $1 billion company is going to have economies of scale. So as it grows, it's going to need things to become more efficient and less expensive, basically. The third thing it's going to have, and this is a pet topic for me that I absolutely love. You guys have heard me talk on it before if you have listened to our stuff, but network effects. If you're going to build $1 billion company, you are not going to do it without network effects. What are network effects? Think of a telephone, right? So if I was the only one on the planet that owned a telephone, it wouldn't be very valuable, right? And then Road Dog buys one. So Road Dog has a telephone. I have a telephone. Look, it's great for Road Dog. It's great for me, but it's no good for you, right? But now, as you guys see, almost everybody on the planet has got a telephone, and not only a telephone, but one that's hooked up to the internet. And look at how valuable they are, right? And is that going to go anywhere? Absolutely not. Like that is an example of network effects where the user experience increases with each new customer. That's effectively the way you think about it, right? So the way I teach network effects is I refer to it as a clock. Okay, and I want you to think of something going clockwise and then counterclockwise. So like Amazon are like probably the best example, and they're $1 trillion company and the best example of network effects working. So if you think of a clock, I want you to think 12, 3, 6, and 9, right? Like 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 12. So like if I go to 12 o'clock for Amazon, I'll just very quickly give this to you. So 12 o'clock will be selection. Okay. Like the more products that they have, the more people go there, the more comfortable they get, and the busier Amazon gets. The second thing they've got, like at 3 o'clock, would be customer experience, because the more stock that they've got, the more accessible it is, the quicker that they can deliver it, the better the customer experience, the more comfortable my wife is to go, to not only buy, my daughter's doll, but then to buy the clothes that my daughter will want to put on the doll in the future, right? So the customer experience increases, and therefore traffic increases, which I just described. We go there to buy the doll, but then my wife is going back there to buy, new clothes and whatnot, and, suitors, whatever the heck it might be for the dolls, right? Bad example, great example, I don't know. But the bottom line is traffic will increase as we become more familiar with it. Well, you've all heard, so 9 o'clock is going to be more sellers. Well, we've all heard the guy that goes, screw Amazon, I hate those guys, blah, 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 blah. I'm not selling on Amazon. I want nothing to do with Amazon, etc. And the next thing you know, guess what? They're selling on Amazon. Why? Because they have to, because that's where everybody is. So what does that do with selection? Okay, so picture the clock going around. It increases it, which is going to, again, increase the customer experience, traffic, etc. And then there's a second layer to that clock, and I want you to picture it kind of speeding up and expanding, okay, with network effects where they basically now can buy cheaper, right? And then you can buy cheaper as the consumer, which is going to, again, increase the customer experience, okay? So you kind of picture that as a clock. That is network effects. But now let's say that now in a different business, let's say you paint cars for a living, right? Well, the problem you've got with that, let's say that you could paint one car per day. There's 30 days in the month. So once you get to 30, okay, and you go from 30 cars to 35 to 40 to 60, what's going to happen? Well, the way that it would work, if you picture 12, 3, 6, and 9, 12 o'clock is going to be a new client because you want to get other people to get their cars painted, and that's how you guys make money. You're going to have available time, which I just described, is going to be one car per day for 30 days. So once you get above 30, it's going to start going sideways, right? Well, 6 o'clock would be clients' wants and needs. Like, do I want my car quicker, or do I want it to take longer? Do I want a better job, and do I want you working on it, or do I want your $10 an hour guy to be working on it and for it to take longer? Clearly, so that's 6 o'clock, clients' wants and needs, and then customer experience would be 9 o'clock in a traditional type business. Well, no doubt you could see. So new client, available time, client wants and needs, and then customer experience. Well, once we get to 30 and we go to 45 and 60 cars, the clock starts going, and it goes in a counterclockwise direction, starts eating itself. And now it's like, those jerk offs, I want my money back. You did a bad job. I got to return it because you stuffed up my paint and whatnot. It starts going in the opposite direction. So it's got the opposite of network effects working in its favor, right? Which is, again, a lot of, like the restaurant has got that, right? It'll go in a counterclockwise direction at some stage. And then the fourth thing, so that would be third. And then the fourth thing that a billion-dollar company will have is branding. And no doubt I don't need to explain that too much, but you're going to need to be good at it. But really what they want to do is, like I said in the answer earlier, Road Dog, and I see why you got those two together, like they're looking for a monopoly. Like if a billion-dollar business, they're not looking to compete. They're looking for a monopoly. And that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to stay a monopoly, but it does mean that, that's their goal. That's what they're going to set out to do. They're not trying to be, the new Italian restaurant, right? They're not looking to start, a new weight loss program or coming up with a new way to do bench press, right? And maybe they are, and maybe they're going to be able to, but if they are going to, they have to be able to create a market of one, and something that, others haven't come up with. So yeah, great question, million versus billion, but those are the four attributes to it. But again, a pretty complex. And so again, I don't think, are you going to be coaching a billion-dollar business? No, but remember what I said earlier, you want to know where you're going to die. You want to know where your clients are going to die, so you can avoid going there. These are the types of things when they're going into an industry and just trying to compete, trying to become, better, trying to become faster, all that sort of stuff, which is all good. But unfortunately, it's, it falls into competition, and, are they going to build a billion-dollar business? Are they going to be able to have network effects working in their favor? And the answer is pretty much no. So that's what I'd say, Road Dub. But really quickly, one, like proprietary technology, economies of scale, network effects, and branding are the four things that I would say that and forget billion, but like a super duper successful business. If you could, nail a couple of those, you'd be doing pretty darn well with your coaching clients. So hope that helps.
So now taking a step back to obviously there's certain, because the next question is in regards to oil and gas in Calgary. And I know that Obviously, Texas would probably be in the same boat, but there's a lot of different parts of the country, of any country that are very industry sector specific. Obviously, a lot of challenges. So the question is, I'm in Calgary, Alberta, with oil and gas and the dumps plus COVID. What do you see is required for the economy to come back? So this isn't just not necessarily oil and gas specific, right? This is more generalistic, but obviously those cities that are that industry specific are probably hit really hard. But what's your thought here, man? What's it going to take?
Yep. Hey, first of all, I love it. Calgary, Alberta. In fact, Road Dog, you used to live there. I grew up. So I don't know if the person answering knew this, but I grew up in Cochrane, Alberta. I went to school in Cochrane from grade 1 to grade 12, which not many people could say that. So anyways, and by the way, a town of 5,000 people. So it was pretty tiny. And, but anyway, so I know it well. So that's good. So oil and gas is in the dumps. Yeah. So to come back, look, we're going to need to get resourceful. The problem, in fact, and again, I happen to be from there, so I know Calgary, Alberta pretty well in the oil and gas industry, pretty well. And really what they're doing is, well, Calgary has been in the dumps for, we are coming on, I don't know that it's been a decade, but it's been, for longer than 5 years. So they're going to need to get resourceful. The problem is that they're all clinging to exactly, even the wording of the question with oil and gas, mentioning oil and gas, like oil and gas prices, like oil and gas is not coming back to what it once was, right? It used to be $100 a barrel. Like that's just not happening again, right? Or at least I can't see that happening. So with everybody clinging to it, it's kind of like, order versus chaos. Again, a topic that I've talked about a fair bit and I love. The reason why a woman stays in an abusive relationship and everyone around her just goes, what the heck is wrong with her? It's just order versus chaos. People will fight tooth and nail to stay in order and avoid chaos, because leaving the husband would mean, how is she going to pay her bills? Will the kids be okay? Is he going to come and find us? Like the chaos, right? So people will just stay in order, and the price that they will pay, and frankly, the entire, the Alberta, the oil and gas industry in Alberta, Alberta is basically paying the price for wanting to do that. So there's an old parable. It's a story about an island, right? This is like a 101 on getting resourceful. So there's basically, there's 10 people on an island, and basically everybody would go out, each of the 10 people, and they would catch 2 fish a day. So that would be 20 a day, but they ate both of those fish. They needed to. So nothing was ever stored, and like there was nothing extra. So if somebody got sick, it was like just, tough luck. They were going hungry that day, right? Because everybody needed what they had. Well, 2 of the 10 dreamt up the idea of creating a boat and a net. And they thought, oh my gosh, well, guess what? They could go out and in record time, they could go and catch all 20 fish just on their own, right? And they could afford to now feed the entire island each day, right? Well, we can now talking of being like resourceful, at this stage, we could do one of 2 things. One, we could tax the 2 people that went out to get fished 80%, and we could redistribute the 16, like they would still eat their 2, and then there would be 16 left over. And then by taxing them at 80%, now we'd feed the entire island, right? Well, with doing this, think about it. Like no one's better off, right? Plus the 2, they've got no incentive. And again, incentives run the world, the end, right? So what incentive are they going to have to fix the boat, to better the boat, to better the net? And the answer is very little, because they're like, well, I'm no better off than I was before, and everybody else is just living off of us, right? But what if the 8, rather than taxing them, what if the other 8 went out and they started, I don't know, you're on an island, they're going to be picking corn, they're going to be picking coconuts, right? Cleaning fish, cooking, repairing, very importantly, the net and the boat, on behalf of the 2 guys, making, warm clothes, yada, yada, they might be reproducing, right? Whatever. Like the first option, nobody's ever better off, right? That's just like communism 101, socialism. And what's going to happen? There's going to be no incentive to fix the boat, to fix the net, frankly, to go back out. So they'll end up reverting back to the way it used to be. Because they're like, well, I don't want to get taxed 80%. This doesn't make any sense, right? Versus the second option, everybody's going to be better off. And really what's going to happen, the quality of life on that island is going to dramatically increase for everybody. And they're going to now have a little economy going, right? So I guess the moral of the story is just simply that, they've got to become resourceful and not reliant. And the oil and gas industry, like, I just don't see it. So there's things, natural gas. They got to take that infrastructure, and they've got to find, other ways. Because just, clinging to order and clinging to the way it's been, I don't think that's going to get them anywhere. And quite frankly, that's what they've been doing for a while. And that's how you end up, with a very bad economy for a long period of time. So I think COVID is, very relative here. Like, folks are going to have to, like, okay, there has been people locked in their houses for X amount of time, right? 60, 90 days, some 6 months, whatever it is, right? Some people have been taking that time to eat donuts, potato chips, not go to the gym, and basically just, cry in their Cheerios and moan about the world. And then others have chosen to go to YouTube or sign up for a coach or sign up for a program, hire a life coach, hire a business coach. Like, they've, what I mean? Like, they've really taken this as an opportunity to gain knowledge. Like I said earlier, right? The gap. So, which one is it? And, and then when you fast forward X amount of time, 6 months, who do you think's going to be better off? The folks that, were eating potato chips, chilling out and gaining weight and doing nothing and crying in their Cheerios, or the ones that got super resourceful and use this time to start thinking about a business they're going to start, think about expanding their business, thinking about other opportunities, going and, learning internet marketing, that kind of thing. It's painfully obvious, but that would be like a classic example, right? And coronavirus, the pandemic, is not completely gone. So here's the opportunity to go and basically, jack it up for yourself. Like, even with our internal business coaches, we've been saying this from the very beginning. Like, when you help people when they're down, again, they don't remember necessarily what you did, but they remember how you made them feel. When you really back somebody and you help them with their business and you provide your coaching services upfront for free or for a discounted amount for a period of time, do you think they're going to forget that anytime soon? There was an opportunity to go out there and really make some waves, really make some friends. And there was there's all kinds of businesses that were at home available answering their phone where they never would have in the future. And some have gone and built those relationships. And a lot of them, you hear our internal calls, you hear it all the time. And then others have chosen not to do that. And we know who the winners and the losers are going to be, right? So that's the solution. But getting resourceful, Road Dog, that's, the economy is down in the dumps. Like, that is what you got to be thinking about. Just think of that island story, which is, there's a famous economist, by the way, who said that. I don't know, I can't remember his name. Paul Pilzer, I believe his name is. But anyway, so he's a pretty famous economist, bit of a legend. So it's an old story, but very, very powerful, right? So I hope that helps, buddy. What do you think?
So real quick, just because it came to my head, and that's just how I roll right now, and deal with this one off the cuff completely. You just said, like, obviously the way, people never forget how you make them feel. I love that. You mentioned about helping people for free. So take 30 seconds, maybe 60. I'll give you 120 if you want it. People say, those who pay attention. Like, where's the boundary on that, dude? Like, where do you say, like, I'm not working for free or I'm going to be taken advantage of? Like, where is that line in the sand?
Yeah, look, the answer is it's not black and white. It's gray. But I can tell you that, look, here's an example. This is what I'd be willing to do all day long, twice on Sunday. And this is what we've sent a lot of our coaches out to do, and I've had a lot of success. So I'd be willing to jump on the phone, and I would phone somebody and say, I got a crazy question. And remember that crazy question, that those two words have made me millions of dollars. So everything's a crazy question, right? So I got a crazy question. I saw your ad in XYZ, or I saw your trucks, or I saw your sign on the road. You were doing window washing, or you're doing the lawns, or you were doing whatever, right? Got a crazy question for you. My mentor has put me up to a challenge, and that is to call 3 business owners today and to solve the number one problem that they have, literally right there over the phone. Then of course I have to document my results and send them into them. So the crazy question is, and I know it's a little bit outside the box, but I was calling you to ask you, look, number one, and feel free to hang up the phone at any stage, but I saw you advertising, I saw your sign. I know I can help. I got some experience in your industry, but my question for you is, what is the number one business challenge you face right now? And after you tell me, I'm going to solve it for you right here, free of charge. I don't have a path to money. I don't have a way. I'm not looking to get paid for this. It's just a challenge that my mentor put me up to. So what would be your answer? And they either tell you to buzz off or they tell you their number one problem and then you solve it. Right. And by the way, when you're thinking about solving it, can you actually do that? Do feel comfortable. Like when I first got started, part of the way that I got started and kind of launched my coaching, and again, shamelessly stole this straight from Tony Robbins, but I used to say that I would come to my event and I will solve any marketing problem on the spot. Okay. And believe me, the first time I did it, don't think I didn't poop my pants before I got up there. And there was some, pretty intelligent people in the room. And I thought, oh my goodness, what if I get stumped in front of all these people? And you know what? Never got stumped, not even close to getting stumped. And then always think first of all, in some cases, you're going to be able to just straight away, it's going to be around marketing. It's going to be around systems. It's going to be around staff. You're pretty much guaranteed those three are going to nail it. And then you just give a little bit of advice. But remember, you can also act as a little bit of a politician, which is what I would do sometimes. What I mean by that, no matter what they say or what they answer, I kind of take them into a direction that I was already going to take them into, if you know what I mean, right? Like politicians get asked a question and then they don't answer the question, not even close. And they just kind of go on a 5-minute spiel talking about what it is that they wanted to be talking about and the talking points they wanted to get out there. So you do that. Not that that's the plan, right? That you're going to pull wool over these guys' eyes, but you're probably going to be able to solve it. It's not things like 80-20, right? Things like the goal that there's a chance that, well, let me ask, say they say it and say, well, so would that fall into the category of would your goal be to make to hit $1 million in gross revenues? Is that a plan for your company? And then they say yes. And then guess what? Just go into the spiel that I talked about earlier, where to make $1 million is actually a horrific idea, right? Because it doesn't make any sense. It's just an arbitrary number that impresses people, but they could get their goal, make $1 million and then lose 60 grand. How intelligent is that? And the answer is not very. So anyway, so I'd be willing to do that. And then at the end of that call, it's not like they're just going to say, okay, well, gee, thank you, right? Goodbye. You're going to have the opportunity to then flow that into, with our guys, they have the ability to find anybody 100 grand in 45 minutes without spending $1 on marketing or advertising. Again, if said properly, it should be challenging to have anybody say no to that ever. So at the end of that call, I could say, well, it's really interesting. I didn't expect it to go, that well, or I didn't expect that question, or that's a really good question, or gee, you obviously get a lot of opportunities. And then I would just offer the opportunity to basically do a proper consultation. And now you've just taken somebody from a cold call to help, but you started with helping them, right? Again, you hear me? You want to be Santa Claus, not the Grinch. So I show up basically solving problems. And remember, it's and what they're going to give you, nothing serious, but the number one problem that they have in their company. So you're immediately A, helping them, and B, know exactly how you can help them. Remember, you don't look for ideas, you look for problems and then you solve them, right? That's how you build a business. So Road Dog, that's what I'd say. And then if you did that 10 times a day, maybe I think I could take 7 of those calls and turn it into a consultation. But let's say somebody doesn't have, I could always think on my feet. That was something I was always very good at. Let's say you're not nearly as good as I am at it, and you got 3 of those people to take a consultation. And then of those 3 people, you got 1 coaching client, and say you charge $1,000 a month, and that's 12 grand a year. Well, in 10 days, you're on pace to make 120 grand with your coaching, right? And in, 20, you're now on pace to do 240 grand. Like if you charge $2,000 a month, you get 20 clients. That's 480 grand with your coaching. So if you do half that well, you're doing pretty darn good at 240. And if you do half that well again, you're at 120. I said it earlier. You introduce me to a coach who's lacking leads. I'll introduce you to a coach who is lacking confidence. And then let's say somebody, Road Dog's, listening to this and they go, yeah, Karl, but I don't have your experience. I don't know how, you know what I mean? I'm not comfortable doing that. Well, the more reason why you got to do it, because I said it earlier, what's the, how does the business coaching profession solve these problems? What do we do for the business world? It's become knowledgeable. Well, what you would do by doing that, what you would learn, like when I do this podcast, Road Dog, you and I have talked about this tons, right? Like I learn more than everybody listening. When I do a daily email, I learn more than everybody reading, right? So you got to become that person. So if you feel like you're, crap scared to pick up the phone and do something like I just described, the more reason why you got to do it, right? It's the same, like say I meet somebody who doesn't want to meditate and is like, oh, I just, meditation is just not my thing. I don't know where I'd start, whatever. That's the person that will get the most out of meditation, right? It's the person super relaxed and chilled and, oh yeah, I used to do that or whatever. Yeah, maybe I'll do it today. Well, like that person is going to get plenty out of meditation, but the person who's poop scared of it and avoiding it and like doesn't feel like meditation is for them is the person that will get the most out of it, right? So if you are poop scared of doing what I just described, you're going to get so much out of it. And it's going to be, I promise you, it's going to be easier than you think. It's the same way every time somebody does a public speaking event, they always poop their pants, right? And after the event, they always say, I can't believe it went so well, right? And it's like, no, as long as you do your homework, your subconscious mind will protect you, right? That's the secret. You've got to do you've got to educate yourself, right? So anyway, so provided you do that, provided you're doing your homework, you're going to be absolutely just fine. And if you haven't done your homework, the answer is you got to go do your homework. So Road Dog, that'd be my answer, man. But that's what I'd be willing to do. And I get what you mean. People that pay attention, but I'm going to do that for free, and then I'm going to segue it, and then they're going to have to pay me to keep going. Most certainly, like I'm not going to just show up and coach them, free of charge for a couple months, hoping that they're going to pay at some stage. Like I wouldn't necessarily do that. But by the way, if you don't have the ability to coach somebody, say for 30 days at no charge, and start coaching or charging them in week 5. There's a debate to say what you really got to do is go do some free coaching. Because remember, Tom Brady, he didn't get paid to throw the football for 20 odd years. And then now he gets paid pretty handsomely to do so, right? It's Wayne Gretzky didn't get paid to play hockey for many years. And then he got paid disproportionately well to the rest of the planet. So there you go, Road Dog. That's my answer, brother.
I'm going to take that as your one thing, by the way, from today. And that one thing is, that would be a good challenge for everybody, is just making 3 calls a day. And then if you have a live event strategy, what a fantastic format after solving their biggest problem to then invite them to your free event. How do you like them apples? I think that would be pretty cool. And here's the one thing I will say, okay? And the thing is this. So, my opinion is, people who do pay attention, but the problem is, as a coach, if in 30 days from now you're in the exact same spot that you were 30 days ago, guess what? You got to change something. So if it means that you can try it, like how much help do you need to give to somebody before they start paying you? And if you help them for 30 days and then they start paying you, 30 days from now, you've now got a check coming in that you wouldn't have had if you kept going the same way.
That's it. Like Road Dog, what people do, like I love it, right? High five, man. So what people do, think about this. You put your dream up for sale, okay? So like what you just described, like if somebody just talks to 3 business owners every day, again, within 90 days, you will have yourself a 6-figure coaching business falling off a log. But the reason you don't is because you're not making those calls. So what do you do? It's not going that well. So what you do is remember your dream is to build, to have a 6-figure coaching business and to have one of these, like a business that you could legitimately be in Mexico or Guadalupe or wherever the heck you want to go, make your calls and make your money and have a successful coaching career. But it doesn't go well for a period of time. So you then quit and then you go back and work for somebody for 60, 75, 100 grand, right? So you see the way you put your dream up for sale, right? It's like, your dream has to be the thing that is non-negotiable, right? Like, so whatever it takes. And as Road Dog and I just explained, what it takes is to just phone 3 business owners every single day for 90 days, Monday to Friday, take the weekends off. I would call Saturday as well, but that's up to you. But at least do it 5 days a week and you'd be on pace to do it. And that's all you got to do. And use the script I just gave you, rewind this and listen again. And it's just, and again, adjust it a little bit, but my mentor put me up to this. You can use my name or not use my name, whatever, right? Use somebody else's name, and let's do it. Boom. So there you go, Road Dog. That's it, man. I hope that's helpful for everyone.
Love it. Love it. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning into another amazing episode, if I do say so myself, of Business Coaching Secrets with the man on top of the hill, my boy, King Karl. And again, if you're not getting Karl's daily emails, or you just want more information on how to build your coaching company, visit focused.com and subscribe today. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, please share with an existing coach or someone that you think would make a great coach, someone that is a big fan of somebody like, say, Tony Robbins. We mentioned him today, as we do, it seems, every episode, or just a great salesperson, or again, just a highly motivated type. Of course, we'd appreciate it if you'd rate this episode, as we know that iTunes and Spotify give an insane amount of weight towards reviews. So please leave us a review if you like what you heard. Well, that's it for another week. If you can believe this, Karl, that is it. So take care, everybody. And remember, progress equals happiness. Make it a good week.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.